My whole life, even as a child, all I really thought about, I used to carry dolls around on a pillow, and I wanted to be a mom.
What Diane Downs wanted more than anything else was to have children. She got her wish, but her dream turned into a twisted tragedy when she was sentenced to life for shooting her children because her boyfriend didn't like kids. Even today, 5 years later, her former husband would like to see her pay the ultimate price.
Executed. That's what I was hoping for. That's what I still feel that they should have done that, you know. We'd all be better off.
But it was the children who would pay for what Diane wanted.
Diane's the type of woman who I think could cut your throat and then sit down and have lunch next to your body.
I wouldn't walk in there and say, this weird person came up out of nowhere and shot us for no reason and just left. I mean, that's not a believable story. I could have, if I had done this, I could have come up with a believable story. It really happened.
It was back in May of 1983, next to this creek, alongside this isolated country road outside of Springfield, Oregon, that this bizarre and tragic crime was committed. It was around 9:45 in the evening when Diane Downs said a man flagged down her car and demanded her keys. When she refused, he pulled out a pistol and shot her and her 3 small children.
I could smell the blood, I could smell the gunpowder, it was just a really, really horrible feeling.
But Diane says she somehow managed to escape and rushed to a nearby hospital. 7-year-old Cheryl was dead on arrival. 8-year-old Christy was shot twice in the chest. 3-year-old Danny was shot in the back and lay paralyzed. Diane, however, received only wounds to her forearm.
It was all wrong. From the beginning, it was wrong.
Detective Doug Welch was one of the first officers at the hospital that night, and although he didn't realize it at the time, this case would consume his life for many months to come.
Here was a woman who was completely apathetic about the welfare of her kids. She was just emotionally flat and preoccupied with something else.
That evening and the next day, police were out in full force, looking for any clues that would lead them to the man that Diane claimed did the shooting, later to be known as the bushy-haired stranger.
I'm throwing the keys, okay? I'm throwing the keys.
4 days later, as one child was being buried, the other 2 still in intensive care, Diane reenacted for police what happened that night. Besides wondering why a woman with children would stop her car and get out for a strange man, detectives couldn't help but notice Diane's seemingly carefree attitude.
I just hit my cast. Started the car and left. The car door shut itself. God dang. Sure, I could sit here and cry and be all upset. And what's it going to prove? It proves nothing. I am who I am, and I can't prove that I'm anybody other than what I am.
Diane was brought up in a strict religious family in Phoenix. She graduated from high school with straight A's. She married Steve Downs at 17, and almost immediately they had children.
I got pregnant when I wasn't allowed to, and I'm not saying he forbade me to get pregnant, but I didn't consult him. I wanted to have children, and so I got pregnant without asking permission.
Well, once she had the kids, you know, it was another story, you know. Well, she treated them like crap, you know. She really didn't treat them very good.
Christy and Cheryl came early in the marriage. Little Danny came later, the result of an affair. Diane then became a surrogate mother, bearing a child for another woman. After 8 years, the marriage ended in divorce.
This was a woman that really got around, you know. Of course, I really didn't know that. Hey. You know, you're not supposed to, you're the husband. You're supposed to be the last to know.
In 2 years' time, I had 10 separate lovers. 2 years. That's not very many, and less than half of them were married.
Diane worked as a letter carrier here at the Chandler Post Office just outside of Phoenix. This is where she would meet a fellow employee, a married man who she would have an intimate relationship with. According to Oregon police, that man would be the reason why she would later try to kill her children. Robert Knickerbocker told Diane he would divorce his wife of 10 years and marry her. But there was one problem. You see, he didn't have kids, and he didn't want kids.
Well, hey, I don't have a problem with you having a relationship with anybody, you know. especially if, if it's going to work into something serious, and how does he feel about the kids? Oh, well, he doesn't want anything to do with the kids. He hates kids, he can't have kids, and he had a vasectomy so that he can't have kids, on and on and on.
Diane and the children moved to Springfield, Oregon. She set up a new life in this apartment house and waited for her boyfriend to get a divorce and join her, but he never showed up. According to police, she became obsessed with trying to get him, writing him letters every day, but they would come back unopened.
He would change his mind on a daily basis. I'm coming, I'm going, I'm coming, I'm going. I want a divorce, I've changed my mind, I don't want a divorce. A week and a half later, he changes his mind, he doesn't want a divorce, okay?
This was a real obstacle as far as Diane was concerned. Those kids were a burden, and there was no way that she could see that she was going to get this guy up to Oregon as long as she had the kids.
Along with the letters, this statuette was found in Diane's apartment. Inscribed at the base, to Christy, Cheryl, and Daniel, I love you, Mom, dated just 6 days before the shooting. Police believe this was not a gift, but a memorial, because soon Diane would be without her children. The town of Springfield was shocked by the crime. Diane proclaimed herself the victim of an unknown madman. But as police investigated, they found no evidence to support her story about a bushy-haired stranger. Instead, everything pointed to Diane. Most damaging were the slugs found at the scene. Police say they were fired from a .22 Ruger pistol. Although the weapon was never found, Diane was known to have a similar gun.
We were able to learn that she did have a Ruger.
She had that gun, and she pulled that gun out and shot those kids with it.
Police were unable to crack Diane's story about a crazed killer who only demanded her car keys and said nothing more before shooting her children. But during a tape-recorded police interrogation, she slipped, changed the story, and said that the man had called her by name and threatened to kill her if she talked.
This individual talked to you, referred to you by name, and also referred to your tattoo.
Right.
As close as you can remember, what did he tell you?
If you say anything about what happened here, that they'd come back and kill me. It wasn't an intentional lie, though. I didn't sit,
But you
just
changed
sit
your
there.
story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, you know, you've heard it. It's obvious.
Doesn't that make it seem kind of tough to believe what you're saying? If you change your story 2 months after the shooting?
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to believe me. I'm not saying that anybody has to believe me. But I know within myself, I can sit here with a clear conscience and know that I did not shoot my kids.
There was only circumstantial evidence to go on. Police felt they needed more. They had to talk to the 2 surviving children. Danny was too young, and Christy had suffered a stroke as a result of her gunshot wounds and had difficulty speaking.
Why wouldn't they arrest me if I did it? If they really had this evidence, I say they didn't have the evidence.
Finally, police arrested Diane, and incredibly, she was pregnant once again. Throughout the trial, the public would see Diane being led to the courthouse in a maternity gown and handcuffs. The trial was held here at the Lane County Courthouse in Eugene. And although the prosecution felt they had a strong case, they were still concerned about their only eyewitness. Would little Christy Downs, now 9 years old, be able to take the stand and testify against her mother? In an emotional and oftentimes tense account, Christy Downs told the jury what happened that night. When asked, "Who shot you?" she replied, "Mom did."
Her daughter Christy testified that Mom stopped the car, got out, and then walked to the trunk where she obtained something. We feel it was a murder weapon, and then walked back where she reached inside and shot the kids. After that, we think that Diane then shot herself.
A jury found Diane Downs guilty of murder and attempted murder and sentenced her to life in prison, where she would later have her baby and give it up for adoption. But after serving only 3 years in prison, she escaped by scaling over a barbed wire fence. Diane was now on the run and a threat once again, but she says she was looking for the bushy-haired stranger.
I wanted revenge at that time. I wanted to do some really obscene things to his body.
But instead, 11 days later, she was apprehended, hiding in a nearby house with a former cellmate's husband. Diane Downs is now held in a maximum security prison in New Jersey, where she's working on her latest appeal. Why are you here?
I don't know. I don't know.
Doesn't that kill you?
No,
Why?
I'm a survivor.
She's destroyed so many people, and I think without one shred of regret. I don't think there's any regret in her body. That I don't think she's ever come to grips, with what's happened. I mean, the gravity of what's happened. The kids especially. She destroyed them. 3 perfectly innocent young children. Destroyed them.
It was the night before his ex-wife's trial for maliciously wounding him, and John Bobbitt, America's most unlikely celebrity, was shooting pool and being just plain philosophical. Are you anxious for your wife's trial to get underway?
Yeah. Just want to get it over with. Get it underway, get it over with.
Thing?
Yeah, I just want to get the trial over with, and and just get on with my life.
John's ex-wife Lorena stands accused of cutting off John's penis in a fit of rage. The organ was miraculously reattached, and ever since, John has become a cottage industry of T-shirts, movie deals, and media appearances, some more tasteful than others.
And this is really my final offer, $15,000 cash. $15,000 cash. If you show me your penis, you walk away from this in cash.
I caught up with Bobbitt away from the spotlight in the pool hall he used to frequent with Lorena to talk about his ex-wife, her trial, and the glare of publicity.
I want to tell people exactly what happened. I'm not the bad guy. I didn't rape my wife, I didn't beat my wife, and I'm not that type of a guy.
The Bobbitt saga began in the early morning of June 23rd last summer. The 4-year marriage of John and his South American wife, Lorena, was rocky to say the least. The world was about to find out just how turbulent it was. After John came home from a night of drinking, Lorena took a knife from the kitchen, pulled back the sheets on their bed, and cut off John's penis. Lorena then drove her car a few blocks away and threw the organ out the window into a field. 9 hours of surgery were needed to reattach the organ. John had lost almost half his body's blood. Doctors said it was a miracle he survived.
Do you think your wife meant to kill you?
No, I think she just meant to destroy me in the worst possible way she could by taking away my manhood, so that I wouldn't be able to be with another woman. She didn't want to be with anybody else, and she didn't believe in divorce. And so when I tried to leave her, she got really upset. It hurt her.
Lorena said she'd maimed John because he raped her that night, and she was portrayed as a battered wife. However, Lorena's image as the timid housewife was dashed by her seductive pose in Vanity Fair. John's image, too, was getting a makeover. He was being groomed for a big media payday.
At first, it was kind of one-sided because she had gotten her story out while I was in recovery, in the hospital. So there's not much I could do until I had really gotten out, and my defense team didn't want me to say anything anyways until my trial was over.
Last November 10th, John was acquitted of sexually assaulting Lorena.
I'm thankful for the jury, and they believed me, and I just want to get on with my life, and because I got a lot of healing to do and start my life over again.
John Bobbitt became a commodity, embarking on a cross-country tour like some kind of rock star, signing autographs and T-shirts with his new motto,
Love hurts. Are you concerned that people might laugh at you now? Does that concern you?
No, not really. All that's just an opportunity to get my side of the story out and explain. People have questions and they want to know, and then I haven't really met any hostility from anyone. Just a lot of sympathy.
This past New Year's Eve, Bobbitt appeared on radio man Howard Stern's pay-per-view special.
I was flattered with them coming up with the idea of about raising money to help me to take care of all my medical and legal expenses. And, I was like, wow,
Viewers of the special phoned in $190,000 worth of donations. John needs the money to pay off his staggering medical and legal bills, hundreds of thousands of dollars. This week, though, John's thinking about Lorena's trial. Amazingly, he forgives Lorena for what happened, but still wants her to face justice.
Do you want to see your wife go to prison?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I don't want to see her go to prison, but I don't want to. It's a touchy situation for me. She was my wife. I was married for 4 years, and we had a good times, and I still have feelings for her. But I just want to forget about her and get on with my life.
If they find her guilty, if the judge were to ask you what kind of punishment should Lorena get, what would you say?
I would say that she would get some mental help and psychiatric treatment, and then I don't know.
No jail time?
Jail time. I'm not really concerned about that. Just that she gets some help and get deported.
Within months of his surgery, John is making a rapid recovery, both physically and emotionally.
You're not really sure the operation is a success, are you? I mean, you won't know for some time.
I'm pretty much an optimist. So I think positively, and I think that I will fully recover because I'm healthy, strong, young, and I guess I'm healing pretty well now.
After Lorena's trial this week, it's likely that Bobbitt will sink back into obscurity. That's all right with him. John is making plans for the future, like falling in love again.
You think this could ultimately be a new Mrs. Bobbitt?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I have to give her, some time and to get to know her more, and I guess she'll have to get to know me.
The music world is numb today, stunned by the violent death of gangster rapper Notorious B.I.G. The tragedy happened here outside of the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, where the rapper, also known as Biggie Smalls, was attending a Vibe magazine party for the Soul Train Awards. Now, shortly after midnight Saturday, Notorious B.I.G. left the party and got into his car when another car rolled by and shots rang out. At least 5 bullets ripped through the door, killing B.I.G., who was sitting in the passenger seat. Dozens of heavily armed cops arrived on the scene as word of the shooting spread. The bullet holes in Biggie's vehicle are mute testimony to the gang-style drive-by shooting that took the life of the Brooklyn-born rapper, whose real name is Christopher Wallace. Smalls was rushed in his bullet-riddled vehicle to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. Dozens of fans, many overcome with grief, held a vigil at the hospital.
They've got a number of individuals that they're speaking to right now, and we're hopeful that we can resolve this matter relatively soon.
These are pictures of the 24-year-old Biggie at the Vibe party just hours before he was killed. Eerie images of a man who had no idea of the violent fate awaiting him. Biggie Smalls was larger than life. The robust rapper was 6'3", almost 300 pounds. He was loud and boastful, known for talking trash. His music was apparently a reflection of his real-life experiences. Biggie made no secret he once lived a life of crime, even selling crack on the tough streets of Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant section, where he grew up. His debut album, Ready to Die, was an immediate platinum hit, selling more than 1 million copies. The CD thrust Biggie into the stratosphere of rap music. Batari Kitwana is the editor of the hip-hop magazine The Source, where Biggie appears on the current cover.
Definitely, as an artist, he is at the height of the game in terms of his understanding of the art form, in terms of his popularity, not just in New York, but, nationally.
Biggie Smalls was also embroiled in a rivalry between East and West Coast rappers. His competition, Tupac Shakur, who once accused Biggie of involvement in a 1994 robbery in which Shakur was shot several times. Biggie denied those charges. More recently, the two men battled verbally over this woman, singer Faith Evans, estranged wife of Biggie Smalls and the mother of his child. Shakur claimed in his music to have had a steamy romance with Evans. She reportedly witnessed Biggie's murder Saturday night almost a carbon copy of Tupac's death in September. Ironically, Biggie Smalls' upcoming album is titled Life After Death. A startling ad shows Smalls posing in a graveyard near a tombstone reflecting his likeness. So far, no arrests have been made in the killing of Notorious B.I.G., and the murder has shaken the rap world, which has once again lost a star to violence.
The horror began in June 1984. Los Angeles was under siege. Death waited in the dark at the hands of a man they called the Night Stalker. After a 14-month reign of terror, he was finally caught. It was only then that his true identity was discovered. His name, Richard Ramirez.
Richard Ramirez's whole trip was to hide in a tree or hide behind a fence and watch his victims at nighttime and wait into the wee hours of the night. And then, while they slept, creep in, like a coward, and kill them.
The Night Stalker killed at least 13 times, 13 people who were awakened in the night to face death. At least 15 others survived his brutal attacks.
I didn't particularly care for people.
In a rare interview, Ramirez refused to discuss his own crimes, but had this to say about serial killers.
A serial killer comes about by circumstances and a recipe: poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Perhaps for Richard Ramirez, that anger and frustration turned to rage, which he in turn took out on his victims. His killings were so sadistic and brutal that even experienced detectives were shocked.
He took a woman in her 60s and stomped her to death with his foot, leaving an imprint of a shoe on the side of her face. From that to just executing somebody upon walking into a room after he entered a house. He strangled, he used a ligature, he used a tire iron on a young girl, beat her, left her for dead.
Would your anger subside if you had to wipe up your mother's blood? I couldn't finish it. I had to leave my brother to finish that chore.
Why on earth would you have hurt those people? Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
What was Richard's motive?
To kill.
That's it?
To kill. It's as simple as that.
Richard Ramirez was raised in El Paso, Texas, the youngest of 5 children born to hardworking, strict parents. Eddie Milam was Richard's best friend back then and remembers when he began to change into a troublemaker.
I did start seeing something going wrong with Ricky Ramirez. I think what really messed him up was the acid. He would do a lot of acid. The stealing, I noticed the stealing and then started as a peeping Tom and things like that.
Ramirez's passion for burglary earned him the nicknames of Ricky the Thief and Fingers. But Eddie knew Ramirez had other serious problems when he was fired from a local hotel.
He said he was fired, he was dismissed due to the cause that he had tried to molest 2 little kids that were going up the elevator.
By 18, Ramirez was a high school dropout, drifting around California. He stayed in Skid Row hotels, never seemed to work, but always had the money to buy cocaine. Friends say the Richard Ramirez they knew didn't date and wasn't the type to commit such heinous crimes. But convicted murderer Martin Kipp, who befriended Ramirez in prison, says he heard another side of the Night Stalker.
Richard told me he needed to associate gruesome violence with sex in order to be completely satisfied. He also told me that he had to violently fantasize about his victims before he could go away sexually gratified.
They are desires, whereas if I didn't give in to them, I would be crushed by them. I believe in the evil in human nature. This is a wicked world, and in a wicked world, wicked people are born. I'm not going to blame society, my race, or people, or anything. It is up to the individual like myself to keep on knocking on whatever door they want to get into.
Because the victims and the methods of killing were so diverse, many experts felt there was no one Night Stalker. Detectives Carrillo and Salerno disagreed and finally broke the case by matching shoe prints. The subsequent trial turned into one of America's most notorious courtroom dramas, punctuated by continual outbursts from Ramirez. In that trial, Ramirez's fascination with Satanism emerged.
As far as Satan is concerned, I believe in a malevolent being. His description eludes me, but I have felt powers that are evil.
After an 8-month trial, Ramirez was convicted of all 13 murders and given multiple death sentences.
I don't care about myself, really. I don't care about what happens to me. I never did, really.